Buddhists. We are talking about upright back bends. So essentially, in a back bend, inherently, at some point, your hip points and your ribs are going to move away from each other. But it's really, really excellent to start with them pulling towards each other so that you actually have some core strength. You're not starting with your low back. Low back is naturally flexible. In order to maintain the entire integral back bend all the way up through your neck, it's really helpful to take it out of your low back, which is naturally flexible, and start to build into your upper back, which is not as naturally flexible. So in order to get that entire integral back bend, especially when you're standing up, we're gonna play with one particular thing. It's very similar to a wheel pose, but rather than having to push yourself into the entire wheel position or push off the floor, which can be challenging for all kinds of reasons, tight shoulders, tight neck, shoulder blades not quite in the right position in order to actually push off the floor. So we're gonna do it at the wall today. And essentially, you're just going to set yourself up like you would for plank pose, and then walk your feet back maybe 6 inches or so. You just have to play with the distance. And then from here, my left hand, I'm just gonna take it out of the equation. I'm gonna put my right hand where my left hand was, and I'm going to turn it down. So this is a really excellent way just to start to get a wrist stretch. One of the things that can happen in wheel is if your hand doesn't quite touch the floor, it's incredibly difficult to push off the floor. So just this, in and of itself, is a really nice wrist stretch. So that being said, once you get here, I'm just gonna bend my knees, I'm gonna start to bend my elbow, pull my palm away from the floor, and I'm going to rotate. This is the part you just wanna go slow, make sure your shoulder feels okay. Once I get about here, I'm gonna start to roll my elbow up towards the ceiling. So in this position, just kind of adjust your feet underneath your hips, and then, this is the fun part, you can start really getting into your core. I can feel my legs shaking a little bit. Then I'm going to put my other hand at the wall. So the goal with this, I'm kind of in a wheel position, but I don't have to push off the floor. And what I want you to look at is my low back right now. Because a lot of times what happens with wheel is this. So now my low back is taking most of the back bend, although my upper back is doing a little bit of work. From here, you can really play with bending your knees, pulling your hip points up so your core is really strong, and then I'm gonna push away from the wall and lift my chest at the same time. So now I'm starting to build into my upper back, and I have a lot of movement through my pelvis, through bending my knees and lifting hip points. Okay, so that's a lot of work. It's hard to talk in kind of that backwards position, but just from the sound of my voice, you can really hear how my core is doing a ton of work to maintain the integrity there. So the goal with that exercise is to really start to figure out how to start hip points and low ribs together, but then inevitably in the back bend, they're gonna start to separate. How do you do that with integrity? So I'm gonna do that one more time. We'll just switch sides. So my right hand, my left hand goes right where my right hand was. Turn your palm down, same thing, nice little wrist stretch. And then I'm gonna do that little rotation. I'm gonna make sure that my knees are bent. I'm pulling my hip points towards my low ribs, and then I'm gonna lift my chest up. From here, you can do a great little strengthening exercise and just do like little push-ups. The more you straighten your arms, the more intense the back bend becomes. So this little action right here, great strengthener, great way to get a lot of mobility in your shoulder. You might find that your hands have to be a little higher up on the wall if your shoulders are a little tighter. And then for those of you that want to play and explore, once you get there, you can actually walk your hands down the wall and start working into a drop back into wheel position. So that requires a little bit more lower body work, but for today, that's what we're going to focus on, is just the upper body, building strength and opening in through your upper back and allowing your low back to be super strong by lifting your hip points towards your low ribs. So if you have any questions about any of that, of course, let us know. We're happy to chat.